where do I start?
So we had...
Somebody has your key to a supermarket. You got to do something with it. What are we going to do? I don't know.
We are the company that we are with the attitudes that we have about the world. Definitely we're coming from an angle that is not going to just make a piece of soap bubble theatre.
Aideen, who's actually also from Clonmel.
I am a proud Clonmel woman.
So we decided that we would work together and collaborate on writing the piece.
And actually part of the reason that this show came about was because around about Christmas time, there was a little clip doing the rounds on Facebook or somewhere of a guy who had come visiting towns. I think he was a comedian or something. So he came to Clonmel as one of the towns on his list. But unfortunately, kind of every other person he asked what they thought of Clonmel, their reply was, it's Kip. And I saw this clip and I was actually really cross, and I kind of said to myself, well, first of all, I'm not having that. And second of all, that isn't necessarily my experience. And so what can I do to be part of kind of helping, you know, change that attitude?
Asylum are our neighbours up the road in Kellan. We thought it'd be great to bring them back down to Clonmel Junction, and I'm so glad that we have. And it's great to have their sort of level of creativity and expertise here.
Our work in Callan for over the years, there's been a lot of trust built up over the years, whereas in Clonmel nobody knew from Adam, like, you know. So
Aideen and Donal went out and talked to people in Clonmel and said, you know, we're here to do a show. What would you like to do a show about? What's the big issue? What is kind of agitating you? What do we need to change? And kind of overwhelmingly empty shops came back.
We started to just pay attention to the town and walking around, and the space that interested us most was this empty supermarket at the end of an empty street, and we decided we would work on trying to get into this building. So it took the bones of 5 months to get access to the building, with some hard work from Clonmel Junction Festival.
And myself and Aideen started reminiscing about the beautiful supermarket that was Superquinn, because we're both from Clonmel. We got the keys. The main thing we were anxious about, we thought A, it would just be kind of filthy and disused inside and it would just be too big a job to get it back to rights, or else B, that it would just be completely gutted and it would just be a big empty space and nothing to tell you that it was still a supermarket.
And we were the first people to walk into the building in 6 years.
One wakes up in the morning with a bright and good new day.
And it was just this visceral reaction to a remembered space. As you know, as you can see, as you can tell, it looks amazing. It looks, you know, it's like something out of a zombie apocalypse film.
it was kind of like walking into a fairy tale of this empty space. So I suppose fairy tales have always influenced our work.
It was Europe's first circular supermarket. So, like, that alone, that idea that there was this flow to shopping was revolutionary, you know, and you can see it now. Like, it is still, okay, it's a bit disheveled, but it's a really, really impressive space.
There's something about this building. There's just something about this supermarket that people love. And I mean, there was almost disappointment when, because everybody would ask, is there something going in there? And I'm like, well, yeah, we're doing a show. And they were like, oh. They were kind of hoping it was going to be opened up properly again, you know?
And the overwhelming thing we got was just a sort of a sense of just kind of annoyance that the place had been empty for so long, and that the knock-on effects for the other shops in the area had resulted in a lot of the street outside being kind of empty. So we figured, well, that's got to be part of it. And then there was lots of other little snippets of beautiful stories that people told us about the supermarket. And that's the things that people remember, not the low prices or the value or all those kind of things, you know. So the show's been heavily influenced by that, and also that kind of sense of coming out of a pandemic and kind of rethinking what are the things that we really value.
This is a moment for us to actually do what we do best, which is to engage with the community and a space that has been kind of ignored in some way. We like to tell stories about people and places that have been kind of maybe marginalised or ignored. Everybody understands the rules of a supermarket and what you do and how you do it. So it's, you know, it's like, then how do you make that interesting? How do you make that a show that people want to see?
I suppose in some ways the restrictions of the circumstances really made us have to think outside the box, and so it made us create a very different kind of show than what we would usually do.
And we spoke a lot in the early creation of the piece about the building actually being a character who's somehow evolved over the 6 years to become an independent woman.
So we're sort of trying to do our bit by breathing life back into buildings, but this show is the biggest breath of life that this building could possibly have.
We had very little time to make the show.
Now, it was a very accelerated process because we had to do it over the space of 2 months instead of 2 years, which is normally how we do things.
So we were casting and writing at the same time, and trying to figure out a structure that we could conceivably rehearse and produce in that really, really short time frame. And we started straight away kind of casting, but also inviting local people to come and tell us their stories about the supermarket and their memories of the place and their feelings about the place.
And so what we did was we held a couple of open auditions to the public here on the property a few weeks in.
20 people showed up. It was really that simple. No, I mean, we're doing a co-production with Clonmel Junction Festival, and they were amazing and found us lots of people.
The cast is just this sort of dream that came together, where we made a kind of a call out for citizen performers, and between kind of people from the local amateur drama, amateur musical society, the youth theatre.
I wondered early on, what is this? Because I've never done anything like this before.
We knew that bringing in the cast, we would need to have something solid enough that we could get them on board, but also knowing that it would have to evolve and it would have to change as we went. And I think people realised quite quickly that we were actually making it up as we went along. And fair dues, they joined us in the making up as we went along. So we've been just writing pieces to suit the performers.
The actors wrote the dialogue and maybe developed their characters a bit, but definitely Aideen and Donal created the world.
Sticking at 2,000, going once, going twice. So, 2,000 for the two chambers, stay still on. Very good. Big round of applause, everyone. Well done. Lot number 9. Everything must go, remember.
We invite everybody to take part in our productions. Anybody who wants to be there, that qualifies them to be part of the process.
One of the cast members was at a communion. She's my neighbour's sister, and she said, God, that sounds really interesting. And I said, Annette, go down and audition tomorrow. And she did. And she's in the show. And it's like this amazing experience.
If somebody has volunteered themselves to be part of something, then that means you get a level of enthusiasm that is different to somebody who is just paid to come and do their job.
So I think it's sort of this really crazy mixture of incredibly experienced professionals, absolute first-timers, talented locals. It's just this kind of beautiful company that has come together.
And it turned out beautifully, because it was interesting in terms of, it was really hard to cast because it was so close to the end of the year. A lot of school kids were doing stuff, a lot of the different dance groups and social groups all had stuff on, so it was very hard to find people who were actually available for the length of the run.
So what we found was when people came in to, audition, but people would be passing by and they'd stop and they'd say, I used to work here, or I heard about the auditions and I don't necessarily want to be in the show, but I'll tell you all about it. So about what it was like to work here. And one of our cast members did work here in the butcher counter, which is just behind me there.
Like I remember staff members here, and I remember Catherine there, and I remember, the lads in the butchery, the lads in the bacon, the deli lad, oh my God, lads on the shop floor, there was Jackie, there was Stephen, there was all these people, Des, and it was like, oh my God, it's just really sad.
And she, so she's been, Janet has been a great source of information about all the goings on, but there's been like amazing stories about stuff you couldn't write, and stuff you couldn't share either. So.
But it's just attracted this wonderful cross section of the community, sort of, I think our youngest is 11 and our oldest is in his 70s. We've one teenager, TJ, who's just pure magic. He was outside on the bench, and other people would look at him and say, causing trouble or whatever, but Aideen just went over and chatted to him, would you like to be part of it? And he was brave enough to say, yeah, well. And he's been fantastic, and he's coming in with sort of designs or ideas for lighting design and lots of different things.
I was actually sitting outside on the benches and Aideen came out and she was like, do you want to do a show? And I was like, no, not really. And then she kept coming out, and then after a while I was like, right, I'll do it. And then straight away I really liked it. So
again, it's something happened before, like it's when you open the door to that kind of stuff, you allow a sort of an agar plate for magic to grow in, I think. Like some of our cast would have been experienced in local amateur productions, but this would have been very, very different to that kind of work. So I suppose it's kind of gaining enough trust from people that they will actually go with you on it. And then we had loads of people who had never performed before, and those are the parts for me that are really, really exciting, where people come in and they start to find something in themselves. But it's getting them in the door in the first place, like, you know, and that's why you always need somebody on the ground. We're really conscious of the idea of trying to make a career in the arts outside of Dublin or Cork is quite difficult. So we always try where possible to work with people who are either in the close enough to locality or kind of based regionally. So we've got like professional actors, actually 2 professional actors actually from Clonmel. Our crew, like our lighting designers from my own hometown, from Thurles, Star Systems. So we've always tried to source as locally as we can. It's a philosophy we've tried to do in all of our, you know, if you do it with your shopping and with your groceries, and you should also we also try to do it with the kind of work we make, like, you know.
So my task is the makeup. So I'm doing all manner of makeup. We're doing a little bit of special effects and stuff like that, making them look all mouldy and crusty, like they're a part of the whole scenery.
My sister works for Odyssey Studios in Limerick, and we've been talking about this idea of the supermarket being the heart of the town, like, you know. So I said, Mary, is there any chance you could get us a heart? So Mary got me a 3D printed heart, and then she did an amazing, beautiful paint job on it for me. And here we have who will buy the heart of our town.
And yes, I think when it closed in January 2016, nobody could possibly have thought that this would be the next thing that happened here.
Here we go. Rehearsals have been magic. I mean, I've been so stressed coming in here and riddled with anxiety and kind of like out of practice, and coming in with this kind of. But it's just been magic the way people, because you're making these ridiculous suggestions to people, like, oh, and by the way, these are going to be your costumes. Oh, by the way, they're going to be filthy. And by the way, you're going to be covered in sort of mold and makeup and stuff like that. And people go, yeah, okay. And you're just going, okay, they're going to go there. Okay, brilliant, let's go there. Like, you know, and giving people license to be weird and surreal. And for me, that really works, because we all know what a supermarket looks like. Let's give them. We talked about Stranger Things, that TV show, being an influence. Like, it's like the flip side or the underbelly of supermarket. Like, you know, what is that otherworldly supermarket? So that kind of having that creative freedom to not be tied, because I've always been tied to narrative and story. Whereas this, you're kind of free to kind of, let's just make a really weird world. Like, we wrote a whole script, or the bones of a script, before we started. But then when people started coming in, they started bringing their own creativity to the project, like, you know. So a lot of the process of directing the show has been actually getting rid of myself and Nadine's script, or trimming it back and adjusting it to the people that we had on site and the people who were working with us on the project.
So I play one of the middle management guys. My name is Niall. And there's another Niall. There's also 3 Kevins and a couple of Susans and a few Joes as well.
So the professional actor's job is slightly different to a regular production, in that the professional, we ask of them to bring a bit more to the table always. So their role is very much like ours. They're kind of facilitators, or they have to support the community cast to be better. And sometimes that means just bringing the energy, you know, because all of our rehearsals are kind of evening or weekend rehearsals. Everybody's kind of tired. So, but a professional actor can come in and switch that on, or help us to switch that on. So that's one of the major roles in that. Or bring some of the knowledge and training they have to the table. And then everybody kind of starts to rise to that. It's really exciting to watch, actually.
You know, we're just meeting each other, and here I'm throwing all these ideas at them, and, you know, God love them, they've done really, really well. And particularly because they don't know me at all, and I don't know them, and, you know, so it's, yeah, it was, and we didn't, of course, have enough time. and working quite late at night. So some of these people, you know, they've been working all day at their jobs, and then they come in and do the rehearsals with us.
The rehearsals, oh my God, there were so many rehearsals. We were rehearsing like 4 or 5 days a week. They were really long rehearsals, and honestly I loved it, because I honestly do like love coming here, coming to the rehearsals, and I get on so well with like everybody in the cast, and I've like made friends and everything.
I think some of these people seem to really live for this, and they probably like their jobs, maybe they love their jobs, but when they come here, I think it allows them, no, I know this for sure, that it allows them to be something else and to play and to have a laugh and to learn something new and to challenge themselves.
The most fun I've had in this is the lads upstairs making me laugh, I'm making them laugh. We're happy out.
We can rehearse to a certain level and get us to a place where you as an actor are comfortable to go out there and do whatever it is you're going to do, but also give them enough material that they have something to hang on to, but also enough freedom that they can play with it, like, you know. And then that interactive process with the audience, it leaves a little space for a bit of magic to happen, like, you know. You can rely quite heavily on people's innate creativity, and if you give them the freedom to bring something to the table, they'll bring it, and they'll bring it in spades, and particularly in this show because it's so weird.
Listen, brilliant work last night and tonight. Really such a relief to get the show. There'll be a little bit of tweaking as we go over the next couple of days on that. We'll pull it all together, but it's all there and it's all fitting. All the other parts have been coming together in the last couple of weeks. Again, I know it all seems a bit daunting, but actually you'll be amazed how easy they'll fit together now, said he, convincing himself. But I'm pretty sure they will. And there's a lot of freedom within it to play and stuff. So massive thank you and well done to all of you for being just absolutely amazing. Mary, who played Ursula, the witch in the bakery, hadn't done much performance before, and she came in quite nervous about it, like, you know, but she was amazing, like, and she wanted to know the lines, and I gave her some lines, and she read the lines, and I'm like, okay, let's give her the lines now, and that was kind of like, okay. What am I supposed to do without lines? And then she started to improvise, and it was magic, like, you know. She just started doing these movements, and this physicality was just amazing, like, you know. So those moments are really, really exciting, like, to watch and to be part of, like, you know. It's the show I think that's been most heavily influenced by the participants, which is brilliant because it happened in such a really, really short space of time. And then it's our job to make some sort of coherent whole out of all that, like, you know, if we can. That's the tricky part.
So to keep people on board, we just work really hard. We're really sound, you know, we feed people and we have fun and we enjoy ourselves and we make, you know, and we push people. Actually, everybody likes to be pushed to be better. You know, at whatever it is they're doing, everybody enjoys that, you know, because that's a respect thing, isn't it? Yeah, we worked with an amazing composer, Dave Boyd, who was based in Portugal. So we were working closely with Dave, and he worked remotely for a long time and then came over for the final 2 weeks.
What I decided to do was basically try and create a marketing and capitalism sort of soundscape. There's a lot of things in the soundtrack that are going to suggest the end of an advert, but you don't hear the end, you just hear the beginning bit.
One slice is never enough. Middle bacon, £1.29 per pound.
Milk for 19 pence?
Yes.
Soft, silky, sensuous.
Take it easy with Old Spice. The mark of Castrol GTX. Voila. That is cool.
Extra quality, extra flavor, light.
Brennan's. Still. Super value.
I recorded there's a lot of wire in this room. You can't normally see it because there are, you know, suspended ceilings in the supermarket, but they're all suspended by wires. So I've used a lot of audio that is the sound of wire. You know, wind blowing across wires and stuff like that. And then I got a trolley and rolled it across the floor and recorded that, you know, like a kind of trolley going across the moon kind of stuff, things like that.
I have no idea what's going to happen tonight. A bunch of people are going to walk in here and I have a vague idea of what's supposed to happen, but I have no idea how people react to it. It's not a linear narrative. there's no lead character. The lead character is the supermarket, and we wanted the audience to be able to experience it the same way as we had the first day we came in, to be able to just explore this strange, weird space.
It is very much a non-traditional theatrical experience. It's what we would call a promenade experience, where the audience follow the action around the space.
So the first 10 minutes is a sound and art installation, where the audience can go around and then slowly the characters come into that. The premise of the show is like this empty ghost of a supermarket and the residue that's left behind. So a lot of the characters, they're not necessarily based on real people at all, they're just based on generic supermarket. And the show basically involves them sort of coming out of the woodwork. In the fish department over there was a globule of some strange amorphous mass on the floor that looked like it had kind of evolved. And we wondered what would happen after a few years. So we do have a lobster girl as one of the characters. We're not quite sure if she's a human giving out samples or if she's an anthropomorphic lobster. We have 2 new members of our cast, just arrived yesterday, 2 goldfish.
There are elements of story that are based on some of the things we heard. There's also extremely fictional and fantastical plots.
And the second half is kind of like a live art performance.
If there was to be a story, it would be of the very ordinary but kind of fascinating to watch action that happens in supermarkets, and what happens in a place like this, a supermarket that has been asleep essentially for 7 years.
And then the third act becomes like a slightly more frenetic live art performance. In the meantime, you've got our youngest cast members, Chris and Charlie, are just cycling around in vintage bicycles. I suppose it's not Virgil Quinn in some respects, that idea of somebody starting off as being like, you know, the grocer's assistant.
There are some very unusual characters milling around. There are some very unusual installation spaces, and the audience really have free reign of the ground floor part of the building.
The fourth act is pretty much a structured improv, because everybody's got a couple of different things that they can do and play with.
So we're going to try and give Clonmel a bit of a G up with this show.
So in all the periphery of the show, there's like in the baker's department, it's heavily influenced by Hansel and Gretel, like, you know, and the butcher is influenced by sort of the Wolf and Little Red Riding Hood, with elements of Sweeney Todd like in there, you know. So all of that is kind of built into it as well.
And as the show goes on, I suppose where the conceit of the whole thing is that there will be an auction at the end of the hour that the audience have to move around the space, and the auction will be to sell off the heart of the town.
It was getting people to think differently and ask questions in a playful way, like, you know, because, you know, we consume so much, and supermarkets are kind of cathedrals to consumerism, like, you know. But I suppose it's getting them just to stop for a minute and think about how and what we consume and its impact, like. And we came up with an idea of having different names for the aisles, you know, having just again questioning where our kind of stuff comes from, like, you know.
We're always very excited by a big cheesy finale. We always do it whenever we can, you know.
We'll buy our supermarket.
And for this one we created a musical parody of a well-known musical number. We were drawing on a tradition in Clonmel of musicals. We worked with our choreographer Cindy Cummings, 2 musical directors, Dave Boyd and Eamon O'Malley, and then Donal and Aideen wrote the words, and yeah, we just kind of had a bit of fun there for the end. So what's the outcomes of this show? I don't know. Other than the people involved really enjoying themselves, and we created a kind of a new community with a very currently active WhatsApp group. I mean, great crack, and just some wonderful intergenerational exchanges, which is really amazing. So that's an outcome I'm quite excited about.
And I think for the cast and for the audience, it will have ripples for years to come, because it's kind of an inspiring thing to work on. Our job is to ask questions, it's not necessarily to give the right answers, because we certainly wouldn't have them. We're terribly badly qualified to give answers and those things, but hopefully we can ask questions in an interesting way. So, for example, what is the heart of the town? What does this symbolise? The only people who have the answers to that are the people who use this space regularly.
Now, I'm not going to be able to fix, all Clonmel's problems by myself, but we can certainly start to have a conversation about pride of place and what makes people proud to be from somewhere. And actually, this former Super Quinn store is a really good example of that, because everybody who came and shared their stories with us said they loved working here. There was a real community to be proud of itself here. And I think, Clonmel people are proud of Clonmel, but we have to remind ourselves of that. We shouldn't forget that.